You still don't get it, do you? Dami, I'm pregnant, and I don't even know if it's yours or your father's.
I own that right. Everything you have, everything you wear, everything you are in this city, I made it possible. I made you, Zara. You think you're in love with him? My son?
Welcome to Munlet Stories, where we give you premium folktale experiences. Hit the subscription button to always get notifications on our latest stories and enjoy.
The air was thick with champagne mist and Afrobeats. From a grand chandelier to the velvet red carpet rolled across the marble floors of the Adebanjo estate, everything screamed of old money and new power. Billionaire tycoon Chief Segan Adebanjo was hosting what the blogs had already dubbed the homecoming of a year. Damilola Adebanjo, or Dami as he preferred, had returned from London, MBA in hand, charm in full bloom. He was tall, light-skinned, clean-cut in a navy tuxedo, and oozed quiet confidence. Women whispered as he passed, some clutching their wine glasses tighter, others adjusting their wigs. To them, he was the future of Adebanjo Holdings and a prize. But Dami's eyes wandered, disinterested. He had always loathed performative wealth. And yet, tonight wasn't just a party. It was a statement, a message from his father to Lagos elite. The throne is secured. Chief Segan Adebanjo stood near the spiral staircase, regal in his igbada, flanked by politicians and power brokers. His booming laughter echoed through the estate, but his eyes were cold. Dami had returned, yes, but it wasn't just for family. He was expected to carry the name, the legacy, the secrets. And then she entered. Zara, she glided in, dressed in an emerald satin gown that hugged every curve with grace. Her skin was smooth and deep brown, her makeup subtle but striking, and her eyes, dark, unreadable, locked briefly with Dami's across the room. Time paused. The music faded. She wasn't like the others. Older, confident, untouchable. "Who is that?" Dami whispered to his cousin. "Zara," the cousin grinned. "Your dad's business associate." But even as he said it, there was something in his tone, a smirk that carried secrets. And Dami, the lion's son, stepped forward. Unaware he was walking straight into the fire. Dami couldn't shake her from his mind. Throughout the night, as guests toasted and praised his return to the throne, his gaze kept drifting toward Zara. She moved with grace, exchanging soft pleasantries with Lagos' most powerful men, yet never lingering too long with any. Her laughter was rare, her smile even rarer, but when it came, it lit the room. At one point, their eyes locked again across the long dining table. She gave him the faintest, almost teasing smile, like a queen acknowledging a distant admirer. Later that evening, Dami stepped out into the courtyard, away from the noise. The garden was lit with fairy lights strung across hibiscus trees and marble statues. He exhaled deeply, loosening his collar, when he heard soft heels approach. "You not enjoy your own party?" came a voice like velvet. He turned, and there she was. Up close, Zara was even more breathtaking. Her dress shimmered under the soft garden lights, and her perfume held the scent of jasmine and mystery. "I prefer real conversations to rehearsed praise," Dami replied. She tilted her head, amused. "So do I?" He offered his hand. "Damilola Adebanjo." "I know," she said, taking it briefly. "Zara, Alyakoya." "Alyakoya," he echoed, savoring the name. There was a pause, the kind that brims with silent possibilities. "So, how exactly are you connected to my father?" he asked, carefully. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Business," she said simply. "We've known each other for years." Dami sensed a wall in her voice, but wasn't deterred. He wanted to know more. Not just about her connection to his father, but about her, who she was beneath the perfection, why she looked both regal and caged. As she turned to leave, she glanced over her shoulder. "Be careful, Dami," she said softly. "The deeper you look into things here, the harder it is to unsee." Then she vanished into the night, leaving only her scent, and a question Dami couldn't shake. Who was Zara really? And why did his heart already feel like it belonged to her? The Adebanjo mansion was quiet. Too quiet for a home that had just hosted hundreds. The staff moved like shadows, clearing the remnants of wealth and wine. But on the upper floor, behind a set of double mahogany doors, another kind of silence reigned. Zara stood before the floor-length mirror in Chief Adebanjo's private quarters, slowly unclasping her earrings. Her eyes, though flawless behind mascara and kohl, held a storm of fatigue. The emerald dress now lay rumpled across the shades, replaced by a silk robe that barely masked her curves. She barely heard the door creak. Chief Segan Adebanjo entered, closing behind him with a soft but deliberate click. He loosened his agbada and sat at the edge of the bed, watching her. "You look stunning tonight," he said, his voice low and possessive. "The boy couldn't take his eyes off you." Zara didn't turn. "I told you it was a mistake bringing me here." "You're not just a decoration," he said, standing now, approaching her. "You're an asset. You know the game." Zara finally faced him, chin raised. "He doesn't know who I am to you." Chief laughed bitterly. "And he must never. Dami is soft, romantic. He sees you as a prize, not the weapon you were trained to be." She flinched. "I'm not your weapon anymore." "Don't flatter yourself," he said, stepping closer. "You're mine. I plucked you from the gutters of Abaddon, gave you the name, the life, the access. You play the role I carved for you." Zara's voice trembled now. "And what role is that? Segan? Spy? Seductress? Or just another puppet for your empire?" He touched her cheek, forcefully tender. "Whatever I need you to be." She slapped his hand away. They stared at each other, him, full of power and delusion, her, full of rage and regret. And in that moment, they both knew the truth. Whatever game had started between her and Dami was no longer under control, because Zara wasn't pretending anymore, and her heart, the one thing Chief never owned, had begun to shift. Dami hadn't slept. Since that night in the garden, Zara had lived in his thoughts, not just as a beautiful woman, but as a question, a mystery wrapped in elegance, contradiction, and sorrow. He told himself it was curiosity, but he knew better. He was falling, fast. By noon, he was outside a private gallery in a koi, one owned by his mother but rarely used. It was quiet, the perfect place for reflection or for secrets. Zara stood in the center of the gallery, gazing at a painting of a crying woman cloaked in gold. She didn't look up as Dami entered. "I had a feeling I'd find you here," he said softly. She turned, calm but unreadable. "You shouldn't be here, Dami." "You keep saying that," he replied, stepping closer, "but you never walk away." Zara inhaled sharply. "Because part of me wants to know what it feels like to not be owned." He froze. "Owned?" She looked away. "Forget it." "No," he said, moving closer. "I want to understand you. Not the version that smiles for my father's guests. The real you." She met his gaze. "And what if the real me is dangerous?" "I'll take my chances." And then, as if the tension could no longer be ignored, their lips met. It was slow at first, hesitant, then hungry, a collision of pain and passion. When Zara finally pulled back, her breath was shaky, her voice barely a whisper. "This is a mistake." But she didn't move. Dami cupped her face. "Maybe, but it's the only thing that feels honest in this entire house." They stayed like that, forehead to forehead, hearts racing. Outside, the city buzzed with life. Inside, two souls had crossed a line, and neither of them would ever be the same again. Mama Ronk Adebanjo was not a woman easily fooled. She had spent her life as a quiet pillar behind her husband's rise, the perfect society wife, the respectable mother, the obedient host. But behind her gentle smiles and graceful headscarves was a woman with sharp instincts and a steel-trap mind. And right now, that mind was troubled from the moment she noticed the lingering glances between Dami and Zara at the homecoming party. Something had unsettled her. At first, she dismissed it as coincidence, maybe admiration, maybe envy. But then she remembered who Zara was and who her son had always been. Romantic, impulsive, and dangerously loyal to what he believed in. Mama Ronk summoned her driver that afternoon. "Take me to Victoria Island," she instructed, folding her cream shawl over her shoulder. There's someone I need to see. An hour later, she sat across from an old friend, Madame Elora, the society whisperer. No one in Lagos knew the undercurrents of power like Elora did. I need to know everything you can find on Zara Alyakuya, Mama Ronk said calmly. Elora raised a brow. Your husband's woman? Ronk didn't flinch. So it's true. Elora leaned forward. She's more than just a mistress. Segan picked her up nearly 10 years ago in Ibadan. She was struggling. No parents, no legacy. But now, she has accounts, properties, influence, all linked to shell companies under Adebanjo Holdings. Mama Ronk's heart dropped, not because she was surprised, but because she had feared this very truth. Her son wasn't just falling for any woman. He was falling for the one woman who could destroy their family. That night, as she stood by the staircase watching Dami return from yet another meeting, she felt a storm building, and she knew she had to act fast, because a mother's love was fierce, but her protection was fiercer. Zara stood by the large window in Chief Adebanjo's penthouse, staring at the sprawling nightscape of Lagos, its glittering lights masking the city's rot. Her reflection in the glass looked composed, even regal. But inside, her soul was a battlefield. She had kissed Dami again that afternoon. And worse, she hadn't regretted it. Behind her, the door swung open with force. Chief Adebanjo entered, his eyes colder than she'd ever seen them. He didn't speak at first, just closed the door quietly and poured himself a glass of whiskey. Then he turned. I warned you, he said. Zara's heart pounded. You have no right. I own that right, he roared, slamming the glass on the table. Everything you have, everything you wear, everything you are in this city, I made it possible. I never asked to be your puppet. She shot back, trembling but firm. You bought my silence, not my soul. Chief walked toward her, slow and deliberate. You think you're in love with him? My son? Do you know what will happen if this gets out? He's not a child, Segan. But you are a scandal waiting to erupt. He took out his phone and tapped the screen. Zara's blood went cold as audio played, her voice and Dami's, whispering, kissing confessions in the shadows. Recorded. Stored. Do you think I wouldn't protect what's mine? Chief said, I let you get close to politicians. I cleaned up your messes. You were useful, but fall in love with my heir. He leaned closer. That makes you dangerous. Zara looked him dead in the eyes. Then be careful, Segan, because I have nothing left to lose. Their eyes locked, two lions in a cage. And as Zara turned and walked out of that room, she knew one thing for certain. The war had begun. Rain tapped gently against the car roof as Dami sat in the passenger seat of Zara's Mercedes, parked beneath an unlit overpass in Lekki. The air inside was thick, not just with tension, but with something deeper, a kind of quiet desperation. Zara sat in the driver's seat, silent, both hands on the wheel though the engine was off. I'm pregnant, she said softly. The words hit Dami like a blow and a bomb at the same time. His breath caught, eyes wide. Are you sure? Zara nodded slowly. Yes. His hands ran through his hair. A flicker of fear passed his face, but it was quickly replaced by something else. Awe, maybe even joy. Zara, he whispered, turning to her fully, this changes everything. She laughed, not from happiness, but weariness. You still don't get it, do you? What? I don't know whose it is. Dami. Yours or your father's. The car fell into a haunting silence. Outside, thunder cracked across the Lagos sky, as if echoing the blow. Dami looked away, jaw clenched. For a moment, she thought he might get out, leave, slam the door and return to the gilded life he came from. But instead, he turned back, took her hand. Then let's find out. Together. Zara blinked. You mean that? I love you, he said. This, baby, whatever happens, I'm not walking away. Before she could answer, Zara's phone buzzed violently. A message from an unknown number. You think this ends in love? Check Linda at KG Blog. She tapped the link with shaking fingers. Her heart sank. There they were. Photos of her and Dami kissing outside the gallery. Another inside the villa. The headline screamed, "Billionaire heir in secret affair with father's mistress." The scandal had broken, and suddenly, love wasn't the only thing on the line. The Adebanjo estate was under siege, not by guns or fire, but by whispers, headlines, and shame. By morning, every major blog in Nigeria had reposted the story. TV anchors debated it on prime time. Board members resigned from Adebanjo holdings in silent protest. Politicians withdrew handshakes. Share prices dipped like a dying sun. Inside the mansion, Chief Segan Adebanjo paced furiously in his study, the walls trembling with his rage. "He has disgraced me," he roared. "In public. With her." Mama Ronk stood in the doorway, arms folded, her face unreadable. "You started this war when you brought her into our home," she said coldly. "You fed a flame and thought it would never spread." Chief glared at her. "Don't pretend you weren't part of this house. You knew her place." "I never made her mine," Mama Ronk said, "but now she's his." Meanwhile, in a modest flat on the edge of Surulere, Dami stared at the half-empty fridge and peeling paint. The apartment smelled of unfamiliar soap and fried plantain. It was far from the world he knew. No servants, no security, no silence. Zara emerged from the bedroom, her hair tied, eyes tired. "We should go somewhere else," she said. "The press will find us." Dami shook his head. "No, let them see us like this. Let them know I made a choice." "And what did you lose for that choice?" she asked quietly. He didn't answer. But the truth was, he had lost everything. His inheritance, his father's name, his future in the empire. Yet when he looked at Zara's belly and her eyes, filled with fear, fire, and vulnerability, he knew something else. What he had now was real. For the first time in his life, Dami Adebanjo was free. But freedom, he was learning, came at a brutal price. The call came just after dawn. Chief Adebanjo had suffered a massive stroke. He was alive, barely, but paralyzed on one side and unable to speak. Dami stood outside the hospital's VIP wing, unsure if he should go in. Mama Ronk had called him, voice brittle yet composed. "He keeps asking for you." Blinking, squeezing my hand. "I know it's you he wants." Zara stood beside Dami, hand in his. She said nothing, just squeezed gently before letting go. "I'll wait in the car." Inside the private room, the man who once filled boardrooms with fear now lay sunken into hospital sheets. Face slack, eyes dim. Machines beeped in slow rhythm. Chief Adebanjo looked up as Dami entered, and a single tear slipped down his cheek. Dami approached slowly, emotion caught in his throat. "You wanted to see me." The chief tried to lift a hand. Failed. His eyes flicked toward a drawer beside the bed. A nurse brought out a sealed envelope and placed it in Dami's hand. Inside, a handwritten letter and a USB drive. The letter was a confession. Chief Adebanjo admitted everything. Grooming Zara, using her as bait, manipulating Dami's path, even falsifying corporate documents to shut him out. But the final paragraph held the twist. "A second will exist, one you've never seen. You inherit everything. But only if you denounce her. In public. On record." Dami felt sick. He looked at the man who had been both father and puppeteer. A titan reduced a breath and regret. "I forgive you," Dami said quietly, "but I'm not yours to shape anymore." He left the room and walked straight into Zara's arms in the hallway. "What did he say?" she whispered. Dami looked her in the eyes. "He gave me the kingdom, if I give you up." Her face froze. "And what did you choose?" "I chose us." A year had passed. The Adebanjo Empire had shifted, fractured in some parts, evolved in others. Dami never returned to the mansion. He had walked away from the will, the name, and the empire built on silence. And in doing so, he had created something entirely new. In a modest but modern building in Lekki Phase 1, the plaque on the wall now read, ZD Foundation, Restoring Dignity, Rewriting Futures. Inside, Zara stood at the podium, cradling a sleeping baby boy in one arm, a microphone in the other. Her voice was calm, clear, and proud. "There was a time," she said to the small crowd of donors, press, and survivors, when I believed power only came from who you served. But now I know true power begins when you decide to serve yourself, your truth, and others. Applause echoed softly, heartfelt and full. Dami stood at the back of the room, holding their daughter, a girl with her mother's eyes and her father's calm. He smiled, not just because Zara was radiant, but because she had survived. They both had. After the speech, reporters rushed in. "Dami, is it true you rejected billions to be with her?" one asked. He looked at Zara, then smiled. "I didn't reject anything. I inherited something far greater." "What's that?" He kissed his daughter's head. "Peace." Mama Ronk, now reconciled with both of them, watched from the side, tears glistening in her eyes. She had come full circle, from suspicion to acceptance, from silence to healing. As the sun set across the Lekki skyline, Zara leaned into Dami, whispering, "Do you ever regret it?" He shook his head. "Never, because legacies built on lies crumble. But love, the kind that survives shame, secrets, and sacrifice, becomes a legacy all its own. And in the end, that was the only inheritance that mattered."